Those two, what do they say?
They can start with the report because we're not going to vote on it.
Okay, you can go ahead and do roll call at reconvene.
Yes. Janice Taylor.
Here.
Keith Austin.
Here.
Bill England.
Honey.
Harley Buzzard.
Yeah.
Joe Bird.
Honey.
Sean Crittenden.
Honey.
Mike Dobbins. Frankie Cargus. Wanda Hatfield.
Honey.
Rex Jordan. Steve Lay. Mike Shambaugh. Mary Bakershaw. E.O. Smith.
Here.
Victoria Vasquez. David Walkenstick. Ryan Warner.
Honey.
We do have a quorum.
Okay, so when last we left you, we were going to go ahead and bump Marshall Buell up. I think he's got an announcement, and then we'll very quickly take any questions regarding his bill.
Good afternoon. First of all, let me apologize. While I was sitting in the back listening to budget hearings, got a call from the BIA. FEMA's contacted them, and we have a swift water rescue team at the Marshall Service. We also have a dive team and a special operations team that you know of. And they've asked us to do an action memo. I had to run over and do that. Now we're trying to get the team up and going. Don't know yet if we're actually going, but that's the first phases of what we do before we have to go. It's something we've done before. We were in Katrina for 5 or 6 weeks. We were in Joplin for about the same amount of time. So we're used to this type of call. We'll go down there and do rescue operations and then probably transfer into special operations for looting and the stuff that usually goes on in these big disasters. So I apologize for stepping in and moving up, but I got to be over there and actually put my work hat on. So, are there any questions?
There's a decrease in the meth initiative. Was that a grant?
That's a one-time fund.
Okay.
Yeah, we asked for a one-time fund and it's went away. A lot of the stuff you see on here are grants that have ended and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think you
Sorry, I
covered.
was
Yeah.
just putting right there.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I might add, the Marshal Service is continually applying for new grants that come up. They don't always coincide with our budget year, but he reports to us quite often about something that his staff has found that they've applied for, and they do a good job of funding different initiatives as they come up.
You know, Suzanne, this is Suzanne Drywater. She's my grant manager, office boss, everything else. And when I started as the director of Marshal Service, I brought her over mainly because she writes really good grants. And it's much easier to go out and get $1 million grant than it is to come to this body and say, "Can you all give me $1 million this month?" I mean, if I can get my budget, my money from the feds, then that's always my first choice. So we're actively looking for grant opportunities. Some we can get, some we can't, but we look at every possibility to get funds to help my agency. It doesn't take away from my mother going to see the doctor or, other funds that the tribe needs to spread out. There's only one pie. It doesn't get any bigger. It's just the slices get smaller. So that's a huge benefit that this body allows me to go out and hunt for those grants, because that's part of this body is to approve or disapprove those funding sources. So I personally appreciate it for what you do for my agency and the support that you give every one of my officers. So that, are there any questions on the budget?
Any other questions? Go ahead, Harlan.
Marshall, the $1.3 million decrease, is that from the, where's it,
What we did is we reallocated the NAHAZA funding over to CNE. We renegotiated our CNE contract. Be honest, it more streamlines what we do at the Marshal Service. It more coincides with what we do and kind of the job that we supply the Marshal Service and the tribe. Just like Houston, if my guys have to go to Houston, There's no way I could fund that out of the NAHASDA funds. So it's cost effective for us to fund it out of the casinos. One, it frees me up to, if we have a crisis somewhere, I can use those funds easier than I could use the coinciding NAHASDA funds. So,
Oh, I see what you've done. You've just taken that loss and
yes.
CNE contract. And that's something we'd like to all want to get back again. I mean, that's the NAHASDA budgets that we've been getting. I guess that, we want to see that again.
I'm not gonna say that we're never gonna see it again. I mean, it is an allowable expense to NAHASDA
Yeah, more.
for control of those housing units, and probably speak to more specifically what that entails, but I'm not gonna say it's never gonna come back, but at this point in time, this is the best alignment with the Marshal Service and what it is they do.
Well, it's just, I hope it comes back to the NAHASDA budget, because $1 million here and $1 million there, take a toll on the tribal fund, so.
Well, and let me be very clear, Counselor. Just because we're not using the NAHASDA funds, we're still going to be in those communities.
I know, but what I'm saying is that $1 million from CNE could have been used for other budgets if we got it back through the NAHASDA, and that's our federal funded program, so. And CNE is not. So. Anyway, hope we get it back. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Lay had a,
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think Harley probably got me to where I needed to be, but you're going to take, we used to get, I think, 700 from CNE.
It's about 861, something like that, give or take.
And so now is it all going to be from CNE or CNB? Your
All
total
of-
budget?
We increased MFT just a little bit, and then the rest will come from CNE to backfill that NAHASDA fund.
So is that close to 2 million?
It's 1.3, 1.2 million, something like that. 1.2 is what I think we're getting back, so.
Plus the 861 or?
No, that's with
with
the
it.
that's with the
Okay.
861.
Got you. Two total. And the NAHASDA fund, was that another reinterpretation or?
No,
I don't believe it was.
This is, you'll see in this budget that the NAHASDA budgets align with the Indian Housing Plan that the council approved a few weeks back.
Yep.
And so this is consistent with that.
But I guess what I'm asking is, was it a federal mandate not to pay Marshal Service through NAHASDA? Okay. I thought that's where we were at one time, so that's interesting.
I'm unaware of that.
So we made the decision, or somebody made the decision to get you out of NAHASDA, Marshall, and into the CMB funding.
Yeah, I think what happened was they just, they need to align NAHASDA with kind of what the future of NAHASDA for the tribe is. And I understand that. At the end of the day, I'm a cop and I need cops on the ground. And at the end of the day, I don't want to be like off-shooting, but at my level, it doesn't matter if the money comes from the NAHASDA or from CNE or from MFT or from wherever, as long as I use that money appropriately. I can use MFT money a certain way. I can use meth initiative money a certain way. And I wish I knew more about what those ways are. That's why I have Suzanne, and she saves my life more than I can count. But I know personally from the police chief of the Marshal Service that I can use CNE money much broader than I can use NAHASDA money. NAHASDA money is so spearheaded that I can remember there's been times in the 17 years I've been here that we've been flush on the NAHASDA side, but we ran around and couldn't have bulletproof vests because our bulletproof vest has expired. Now, this was years ago. From my point of view, having that budget under CNE allows me, if I need to buy bulletproof vests because I got 3 or 4 expiring, I can use that money easier to purchase those items that I might not necessarily be able to buy under the hospital. So,
And that, I've got no qualm with that. That's your, you got a pot of money and you need to spend it, I understand that. What I'm not understanding is how did we get to the point where we didn't want to use the federal funding?
I don't
And
think that's,
probably more
I was gonna say, I don't think
Lakeland.
that comes from me, so.
I understand, and I'm looking at Ms. Horn, and there's Jody. How you doing, sir?
I think one, and I wasn't in on the discussions on that decision, but from what I'm seeing, 5 years ago, we had $40 million in the housing carryovers. We've been spending more the last few years than we actually have coming in every year. And it's just coincidence now, we've spent down, we basically only carryover we have is the current year funding. So, in my view, we could cut out marshal service from Nahasda, or we're going to have to cut housing programs out of Nahasda. So, I mean, that's kind of where it is right
I
now.
think it's easier for C&E to pay for marshals,
Right.
to come out there and service them than it would be to pay for housing.
If we paid marshals out of Nahasda in 18, we're going to have to cut some housing programs out of Nahasda.
And
because we're-
that's the questions that I was
Yeah.
asking, and we were kind of going around the circle for a
Yeah.
while as to how we got there and why. As far as I know, this body was never, you were never in the loop. I know I wouldn't.
Counselor,
That's-
you do approve the Indian Housing Plan that comes to
Yes, we
tribal
did.
council. And so in the Indian Housing Plan, which is prepared by Gary Cooper and by individuals who have expertise in Mazda,
And
They-
you must understand that what we just said today and what I understood today was not presented in that way when we approved the Nahasda plan. Thank you.
Hey, Counselor Warner?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. So, as far as the realignment of funds, is there any changes to your operational units, like SWAT team, just anything? I mean, is everything pretty much the same?
One of the things we have is, we have one position at the Marshal Service that we don't have filled at this moment. It's a dispatcher position. We have 4 dispatchers, and usually we have 5. And I'm just not gonna fund that position. So we can still operate, you'll still have 24-hour-a-day coverage and dispatch. It's just, some of my office staff can supplant that. They're OLID certified, they're certified to be dispatchers. So if somebody's sick or somebody needs a day off or whatever, takes vacation, then just one of my office staff that's OLID certified can go in and fill that position. So that's just an easy change. We reduced our overtime hours from 200 to 300 hours per man and woman down to 100. So that just means I'm gonna have to be more frugal with what we send out. Or we're gonna get reimbursements like this Houston trip. We wouldn't go unless BIA is gonna reimburse us for our time. So there's those questions that we'll be doing. With overtime is we reduce some of the training that we do. Marshals are pretty high on training as far as some of the stuff we do, like the Swiftwater Rescue, the dive team, the Special Operations team, takes a lot of man hours to keep those certifications at a certain level. We're going to try our best to keep all those certifications at that same level. It doesn't mean that maybe we're not as active on some of the things that we used to be, and that's all right. One of my positions, she does a lot of the community stuff. She does the RAD. She does sex offender stuff. We're going to be looking at moving her salary over to health, and because she does a lot with health. She's always with health, I think. I ask her all the time, are you a nurse? Because you're always in health. But so that position, the salary, she'll still be a marshal, so she'll still report to us, but just that funding source will be paid by Healthy Nations or something like that. I'm not quite sure where that's coming from, but so that's going to recoup. We're at the end of the day, we're about 124,000 short of a flatline budget. And I think we have sat down and have made those fixes and adjustments where we're not going to lose marshals. We're not going to lay anybody off. We're not going you're not gonna get a call from us saying that we can't come out and help your people. That's not what we're saying. We just gotta reevaluate and readjust some things here in Hollis.
I want to say one thing. I appreciate you in the past. Some folks from the Stokes Ceremonial Stomp Grounds have called, and of course, we've got the big weekend coming up, so they would appreciate the little support.
We'll have, we have one guy that goes every year. He loves it. He stays there all night, and he will be back this year, so yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Buzzard?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with what Council Byrd had brought up on the meth initiative. Where was this funded out of before, on the meth initiative?
Carryover money.
Based upon the transfer of your
Office.
radio.
Yeah, the radio, we had to transfer the oldest terminal and the radio tower from, going to be your old parking lot here in just a minute, to EMS. So we asked for carryover funds this year to handle that cost because it was a quite expensive cost to get that moved the right way and made it legal.
Well,
Budget still exists.
I'm concerned about it because it's a $100,000 decrease on meth initiative, and that is rampant within our Cherokee Nation and Oklahoma and the United States. I'm a little concerned about that. Also, your budget is almost over $1 million less than it was last year.
A lot of those were grants.
Yeah.
A lot of our budgets, if you look at our budget, grants are a catch-22. They really are. We get good, almost free money. We gotta do work, gotta do things for that money. But we can't pay for employee stuff with the money. I can't hire marshals with that money. I can't pay overtime with that money. I can't buy fuel with that money. I can't buy ammunition with that money. I can't. So this money's earmarked. So when one of the examples, I had a local official come to me and say, "Well, you must be rich at the tribe because you all have 20 brand new cars." I said, "No, I have a really good grant writer that wrote me a grant for 20 brand new cars. That's why I came to you all and said I need 20 brand new cars because we got them on a grant." But the perception is we have all this money because we have this equipment. Well, we have that equipment because of the grants that we write. So those grants, some are a year, some are 2 years, some are 3 years, and those grants fall off. And so that's the majority of this reduction is the grant is ended. Let's say the grant was, I don't know, $600,000 and it's ended. So now that's going to be that reduction. Is a lot of that is just that grant going away.
Yeah, and I realize that, and I know the grant money is specifically earmarked for whatever it's for. And I'm just following up on what Council Byrd was talking about, the meth initiative. I just hate to see you take a cut on something like that, which is something I feel like we really need to keep up.
Well,
The other thing is, for years and years, our philosophy was to use federal funds to fund projects. And here we're taking the housing, which I know housing is important for the Cherokees, and taking that $1 million, and now we're charging C&E another $1 million to fund the Marshal Service. Well, that's $1 million out of C&E's money that could be used for housing, or putting a hot water heater down there in Sean Crittenden's district, or my district. So that's where I'm talking about from. And I know to you, Marshall, that if the money's there, you're going to use it the right way. I'm not worried about that, but I'm just saying our philosophy is in the past that we use federal dollars to fund these programs, and now we're dipping over into our profit margin, C&E. So that's where I'm coming from. We want to make sure the rest of the council knows what we're doing here. So that concerns me. How much more longer can we dip in C&E to fund these programs here? And that's my reason for talking about travel and everything else on expenses. It's just, I don't know. I hope we know where we're going with the thing.
Yeah, and in all honesty, we didn't just go over to CNB and say, hey, we need an extra to plug a deal. We've built new casinos. We've got more folks, and I don't know if you folks have noticed or not, but this is getting to be a crazier and crazier world. We're having bomb threats.
And that's where we need meth.
We had missiles that are pointed at our casino. We've got these fellas have to respond to those. So we're paying it where they're working, where it's not free money, it's not, they're doing the casinos a major service. And we've got to keep the casinos open, we've got to keep the people safe, and CNB saw that they haven't raised the amount that they're paying for that service, but yet they know they're calling them more and more than they ever have before. So it made sense that that's where that funding came from. Instead of, we've been able to use NAHASDA carryover, it does not exist. There's not a person in this room that wants to do less housing. I don't, and I know you don't. We've got to find a way so that we can have them available for our casinos as well as the rest of the Cherokee Nation. And that's the way we turn it.
And I agree, you know, we do need people up there, but I guess I thought some of this money was when you did patrols for HUD homes. I know there was a controversy whether it was gonna use that money 5 years ago, and I think Council Berg remembers that experience, where we had to go back and justify that, and I thought that's where those dollars were used to do the patrols for the HUD homes, actually.
The NAHASDA for the law enforcement section on that is not just for police operations, it's for safety and security of those HUD environments.
Right.
So I don't work for the housing authority, I don't know what they're gonna do with that money, but if they're shoring up security in the area, if they're putting lights in the neighborhoods, if they're putting security doors on where they didn't have security doors, all that goes back to that safety and security of that HUD environment. So as the marshal, we investigate fraud, waste, and abuse all the time. As long as Gary and them are using that money for the safety and security of those housing sites, I have no problem with it. Now, if they go and buy a hot air balloon to fly to New Jersey, we're going to have some issues. But I have no doubt that they're going to use that appropriately. But it's not truly set aside for just law enforcement. It's for the safety and security of that house site. They can put speed barriers up, you know, the big things you run over and hit the bottom of your car on. There's all sorts of mechanisms that this NAHASDA, this sliver in NAHASDA that says safety and security can be used for besides us. It's just like the motor fuels, the section for law enforcement. You know, you can give it to, you know, you can give it to Locust Grove PD, or you can give it, you can buy cars for Claremore PD, or you can buy a dog for Tahlequah PD. You know, it can be used for things within that law enforcement realm. And just like they're going to use NAHASDA, I'm sure they're going to use it for the upkeep of safety and security of those housing sites. Most of you have been to, probably all of you have been to the housing sites. Some of them need some safety and security. And there's no way I can come to this body and ask for marshals to secure every housing site in the Cherokee Nation. That we don't have a big enough budget. So maybe it is smart money to kind of take this NAHASDA fund that's designed for safety and security and use it to implement safety and security in real time in those housing sites. We're still going to be there, we're still going to patrol, but we'll have 4 marshals out at a given shift. That's 4 for 9,000 square miles. That means that there's a domestic in Claremore, that's 2 of my 4 marshals gone because you can't go by yourself. So if you can imagine, these men and women drive an extraordinary amount of time every day, use up an extraordinary amount of fuel costs. But we can't be everywhere.
And I'm okay with that, Marshal. What the chief said is exactly right, you know. We got to do this stuff. But my point was, you know, there's $1 million coming out of C&E that we could have used some other place, but choices have to be done, and I see what Lacey and the administrative team have done, so I'm okay with that. I just want to make that point, you know, that $1 million here and $1 million there is, and that's what we're here to do, is look where the money goes, and that's my point, so I'm okay with it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Jody?
I just wanted to clarify on that meth initiative.
Yeah.
It actually is flat. I mean, there's 1.5 employees out there, actually 1.78, in 18. That reduction is actually just related to that one-time carryover for
The move.
for the move.
Okay.
It really wasn't meth, but instead of creating a brand new budget for a one-time little expenditure, that's where it got put, is in that general fund budget, so.
So it had more to do with the move than.
It did,
Yeah,
exactly.
it had to do with
All right.
moving a very expensive piece of equipment, so.
Right.
All right.
That sounds better.
Yeah, that sounds better. What we thought of that, so.
Okay, Stick has a question.
And on the ruling that just came out of the 10th Circuit on tribes, I guess having more jurisdiction as far as arresting for criminal activity on Indian territory. Where do you foresee us in the future of Cherokee Nation in that, on that ruling?
Well, I don't want to address it, good, I'm glad it's coming up here. I was gonna say, I don't want to address it directly because I'm not an attorney.
Okay.
You know,
You're talking about the Murphy case.
Yes, the Mercy case.
That case is a long ways from being the law of the land, okay? We've had a 10th Circuit decision. The state of Oklahoma is asking for a hearing en banc. That means all 9 justices of the 10th Circuit here. From there, invariably, being appealed to the Supreme Court. We are very aware of the possible consequences, opportunities of this case. We're monitoring it, but to make any type of pronouncement of jurisdiction and ramifications at this point is just premature.
Okay.
We're just going to keep a very, very close eye.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Sorry about that, 'cause
No.
I'm like, ooh, now that's
No,
above
yeah.
my pay grade.
Thank you, Chair.
Counselor Pittman?
Shannon, Marshall, what were you saying about the four officers? Now, is that a particular shift, or was that just,
No, that's on a shift. I usually have 4 officers per shift out.
4 out?
Well, you know, you got 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You got vacation, you got sick leave, you got schools that they're in, you got other things going on. So we average about 4 per shift.
So if you do get a call, you go run to Catoosa, that comes out of those 4?
That comes out of that 4.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, I haven't figured out a way to have every marshal on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Their wives and
Wow.
husbands don't care for that. So, yeah, so if I get, let's say I get a call in the Rolling Casino. There goes a marshal for that. I get a call, and this is, I want to be very clear. We get calls at the casino nightly, and most nights on Fridays and Saturdays. I mean, we're doing whatever. Now, we get a lot of help with our cross-step agreements in the communities that we serve. But at the end of the day, it's tribal cases. It's our responsibility to take the lead on those cases. So I could have one there. I could have one at Catoosa. That leaves me 2 officers to respond to 9,000 square miles, you know. Councilman Lay has called me to task probably 15 times on, I need to see marshals north. And Jess, thank goodness, lives one of the furthest north, and he comes up there quite a bit. But they always get called to cases that they got to work, so, you know.
How many shifts?
We have, they do 10-hour shifts, so they'll do 4 on, 3 off, and then it rotates, so. We did 12-hour shifts before, but the guys and gals, by the time they got to the end of their shift, they couldn't hardly drive. We had wrecks were going up, so probably 10 years ago, we got out of 12-hour shifts. Thank goodness, because I was the midnight shift supervisor at the time, so I'd work 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., and that was tough to work and drive a car. So we've been on that 10-hour shift now for 7 or 8 years, and the guys seem to like it. 10 hours is a long time if you're running from call to call and taking reports, and a lot of driving involved in that. We also have a whole detachment of 6 individuals that only work major crimes. So they're investigators, and they work generally Monday through Friday, an 8-hour shift, and then they're on call for any rapes, child molestations, homicides, any major crime that happens in any country. They're there, so they spend most of their days either in federal court in Muskogee, federal court in Tulsa, or one of the county courts. So
If there's a big issue happens,
yes,
there's really not just 2 guys 4 guys available, that specialist will come in if I say, hey.
Yeah,
so-
if, let's say we have a homicide. Marshals, even though I joked about being on call 24/7, they pretty much are. My special operations team is so critical to that, let's say, Council Austin, you're on the special operations team, and you and your wife want to go out and have drinks tonight. He will actually call you and say, hey, do you mind if I go with my wife and have some drinks tonight? Because he can no longer be on call status. That's how important these positions are, is they can't go out and have a regular life even on their days off. That's why marshals, if you see them on vacation, it's because you're somewhere other than Eastern Oklahoma. They go on vacation, they get away, because I can't tell you how many times I've called Mike Roach and Danny Tanner on vacation. Where you at? Oh, I'm in Yucca Springs. Well, that's about 3.5 hours when you get here. We have armed barricade. So it is a life that they chose, and they get well compensated for it. But that's how critical it is. We don't have Tulsa's Manning. You know, I don't have 700 or 800 police officers to do the work. You know, we have 34 sworn, and that's including me. And I know I've seen me go out and arrest people the last couple of years. Nobody wants to see me do that. It's not pretty anymore. I'm not as smooth as I used to be, you know, because you get out of the habit. But yeah, so we can call people out. You know, if there's an issue in Sallisaw, we had an issue about 3 weeks ago. We had 21 of my 34 marshals on that scene.
You've been good about that, Adair County, so I appreciate
So-
that answer the question.
Okay.
Just one comment. Anything different we're doing for the Cherokee holidays? Because we're going to have anywhere from 75,000, 100,000 people come through our town.
Yeah, it's always great fun at the holidays. I mean, let me first say that my guys and gals just love it all weekend. No, we always have a dignitary protection staff. You'll see some of my people out there in plain clothes. They won't be able to see their guns. They have them covered, and they're actually to kind of handle the dignitary side of it. We always have a section of our staff that's assigned to any protest or counter-protest. We always have somebody that's protesting. You know, I don't like Healthy Nations because they gave me a T-shirt, not running shoes or something. You know, there's always something going on. And so I have a team that's assigned just to do that. My people start working about Thursday evening, and we work long hours for the holiday. It's one of our biggest overtime costs that we have all year. We prepare for it. The problem is it's right at the end of our fiscal year, so you know there's not a lot of wiggle room on that.
We really appreciate the Marshal Service and security for making things.
Security makes my life easy.
Yes, you guys do an excellent job. We appreciate you. I want you to know that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Hatfield.
I spoke to Mr. Beal recently, we had a long discussion about his services, and I was pretty well aware of what went on, but it was very informative, and I think it's information like this that, is helpful to me. And he at the time he indicated he had 34 marshals, and that I was a little surprised, but he also didn't explain today that the time and effort that it takes to train our marshals, because we're good, and he wants the best, and so I thought I would bring that, to everyone's attention, that the training that it takes just to achieve, that status, I think, and I think that's very important. That's what makes Cherokee Nation so great. Thank you. Thank you.
And I will say that when we in the communities talk to our local law enforcement after an event that the marshals have assisted on, they have nothing but the highest praise about how you come in. It's their deal, but you're there to assist, and you bring your expertise and your equipment and everything. They're always very thankful for your assistance.
Well, thank you.
So if there's nothing else, let's let him get back to doing his job and go take care of Wanda and Mary's people.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marshall Beal. Okay, this brings us to Human Resources, and I see Nason back there.
Good afternoon.
On the human resources budget, I have no significant changes. It shows on the 204-1070 budget that I had a decrease of $66,585. That's based off, I got a carryover request granted last year, and so my budget is actually flat. That just shows the carryover. HR recruitment, no changes. Risk management, I have increased request for $50,000 for one clerical person. See, on the insurance management allocation, it will be increased by $450,000, and I believe that's just to show actual cost of collections and claims and premiums paid. I don't think there's actually going to be any change in money. Is that correct? Okay. And on the CHS sponsorship program, that stays the same. Does anyone have any questions?
Counselor Watkins, Stick.
Is there any way we could set a, I don't know what the definition of it is, but like the salaries across the board for all of our positions, is there any way to set a pay scale where we just can't come in and say, well, I think Wanda's worth this much money, when there's something in place in writing where we have to go through HR to pay that person this amount of money?
We have pay scales, and we have, through policy, a level system set up. So we have a minimum and a maximum set, and then we have a midpoint between the two set, and then we also have sometimes things in place for education and experience. If you have someone who has a degree that is in addition to what is actually required for the job, sometimes you can give credit for that. Or if they've been doing it 10, 15 years, sometimes you can get credit for that. But I think they're capped at a certain amount.
Looking at the directors, the pay, and my only issue in this whole entire budget was the amounts of raises we're giving to our executive branch. And there's there's no cap. It's just like, it's opinionated. It's like, I'm gonna give you this much amount of money because I think it's an adequate amount of money. There may have been feasibility studies done for what these salaries are worth, and there might be some people that's underpaid versus other people that's in the same position across the country. But we need to get something put in place. I'm not comfortable with approving this budget and just giving people raises just to be giving them raises. Now, granted, everyone deserves a raise every year, 3%, 5%, whatever. But for me to say, I'm going to give you a $40,000 raise, I'm going to give you a $10,000 raise, I'm going to give you a $2,000 raise. That's not.
And we routinely market those as well.
Anyways, I wish something could be done. It's above your pay grade, but
Shouldn't be.
shouldn't be. And it could be something that this body could bring into a resolution to make that happen, where that is a comfortable salary for these positions and is set at that amount. Because the next chief comes in, whoever that is, could come in and say, well, we want to pay you $300,000. I think this body, this council, needs to set these salaries at some pay, and if it needs to be rediscussed down the road, let this body determine what those are going to be, not the discretion of one person or two people, or whoever it was that said these. And I'd like to start working on that as a work group for the next budget year, and then put them on a small increments of a pay raise, if it's 3%, 5%, or whatever it may be. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and we will also market those positions as well.
Okay. Something for all of us to be thinking about. So, anyways, thank you, Chair.
I just want to make a comment of your employee referral bonus program. I know some private businesses that do that. If you know somebody that you think would be a good fit with our team, please bring them in. I think that's a really good thing, and I'm glad that you're doing that ongoing.
Good. We work hard to.
It works well.
Because we have 3,500 people. If they know someone, say, hey, look, here's
You
this
don't
job.
know everyone. Yeah.
As long as they say, and make sure to mention me on the form. Yes, it's a great program.
Are you dying to say something?
Yes, just one comment. Since you've taken over the HR, we've really made some good strides. We've made tremendous progress under your leadership. The only thing that really gets back to me is as a former educator, many times we can't address the needs of like Sequoia High School like we can our regular day-to-day employees here at Cherokee Nation. When they need a substitute teacher, we do not have time to advertise that and go through the red tape. When they need a bus driver, substitute teacher, we have to act in a really quick way because these are day-to-day needs that these kids do without when we have to run into the red tape of HR here at Cherokee Nation.
I'll check on them and see. I thought we had something in place that was addressing it, but if it's still.
It's getting better.
Okay.
It's getting better. But other than that, you guys are doing a good job. I mean, we hire so many employees every month, and the numbers just keep getting bigger. And we talked about that in our health discussion here, how our numbers are keep growing, and they're going to continue to grow. So HR, you're doing okay.
Thank you very much. I got a great crew.
If you can address that issue up there with that administration, because they're always needing people like today. Okay? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome. Anything else for Nathan? All right. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your patience with us. Okay, that brings us down to management resources. And Bruce Davis.
Is Bruce here?
Bruce is here in the house.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Well, if you can find my budget, I'll try to answer any questions you.
He's all yours.
And
Anything for Bruce? All right, I think you got off easy, buddy.
all right.
Thanks for being
Bruce, when you
here.
get time, would you present a updated organizational chart? Because some of the things that we counted on from you are no longer in place. They're split with our natural resources secretary. Would you enlighten us on what your chart looks like now?
All right.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Okay, Anna, this is the one time of year you get to go before Diane.
I'm that.
So enjoy.
And she's not happy about it either. Well, you have before you all of our budgets that we prepared, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about them.
I have one question while everybody is getting theirs together. The Cowie Cafe, it has been explained to us that we had agreed to continue to operate that for what period of time?
We didn't specify a period of time, and we actually have we're still applying for a grant that we just haven't had the answer yet back on, and we anticipate we think we'll get funded again for it, so.
Okay, so that's just kind of, if we don't get funded on that, let's say, it's something that if we discover that it does support itself, we'll continue to fund it. If we decide that it's just not worth it, then we'll look at it every year. Is
yes.
Safe to say? Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Anybody else?
Would you explain real quick? Go ahead, Harley. Go ahead.
And on this, I see DG loan grant. It's a grant. I know it almost zeroed that out this year. So
Right.
And I haven't heard where that's gonna go this year, do you know?
I do not know.
Okay, who would know? Lacey, where's that gonna go?
ICDBG,
Yeah.
thinking it's storm shelters for Head Start.
Okay.
If that changes, then I'll correct myself.
And that's a good thing for it. I agree. I've wanted to see those for years and years, so yeah. That's good. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Anything else for Anna? Yes, Counselor Warner.
Thank you. And so we looked at the proposed president's budget the other day and the cuts. Can you tell me something about how your department would be affected?
Well, our primary funding sources for our group are individual grants that we write, which could be affected to some degree, as well as self-governance, general fund, and NAHASDA. So as much as those programs can be affected from the federal budget would determine how much of an impact we would take.
Thank you.
Counselor Walking Stick, did you?
No,
That's
I give you a
okay.
thumbs up. It was good.
You're scratching.
I was scratching too. Yeah.
Okay, there's nothing else for Anna. We'll move on. Keep up the good work. Okay, I believe this brings us to Marcia Lamb.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, she's got your back, but she's gonna stay back.
As you can see by the budget that we're funded at a small decrease. Anything will impact us when you're dealing with programs, but I'll just open it up to any questions you may have.
Counselor Lake?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The senior meals programs, have they been cut back, or are they going to be flat budget, or?
The ALA Title 6, that's the nutrition program, it was decreased a little bit. I don't think it will have a dramatic, it might keep us from opening any other sites, because that's where our major cost comes.
With senior nutrition, we asked for an increase this year of 40,000, but that budget did go back to the level it had been at. So,
The previous level, it's flat then?
We don't see any major problem in really anything except NAHASDA, like everybody else.
Thank you.
Harley, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Okay.
On GA, I see a big decrease on GA.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do, and what's gonna happen?
well, that's the same kind of thing. We asked for an increase this year. You know, the bulk of that is burial. And so we asked for an increase to finish out the year, so the budget went back to what it had been before we asked for that additional funding.
And that's so hard to project.
Yeah.
Counselor Buzzard? Is that,
Yeah.
is that all?
One other question.
Go ahead.
I saw on veterans, where's that gonna go? Where's it funded to? Still for your program? Veteran Center?
I'm sorry.
Veterans Center.
Yeah. What about it?
Yeah, is it still funded under you?
Yes, at this time.
Okay, I didn't see it in here.
It's the third one down, Office of Veterans Affairs.
Okay, and then I guess the reason I asked that question is I saw it was zeroed out under commerce. Kind of confused. Okay, I'm all right with it. Thank you.
How many will that staff, that Office of Veterans Affairs? Are we going to make any changes there?
Well, the majority of our budget goes to the trip and to different activities that we have over there. So it will, it's always been a manager per they call it customer service. It's just a 3
Okay.
things.
And one of our employees felt, has been ill. Are we going to make that replacement?
Yeah, with Raymond.
Yeah.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I said one of our employees that I'm not going to name is fell ill, so are we going to make that replacement?
As soon as we can.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Walton State, did you get clarification you need?
Yes, yeah, Holly answered my question.
Okay, Counselor Hatfield?
Ask my question.
I just noticed here it says remediating juvenile truancy. Would you explain that? What we're doing in that area, or is that just there's a blank for 2018. Recently, there was a survey. Channel 9, Kelly Ogle mentioned that truancy was the #1 issue in education in Oklahoma. #1 problem. Are we going to completely drop maybe truancy programs? Or are we going to do anything about truancy programs in our Working
That's the
County
one
area?
that we had a part-time person, and we just worked with services for youth that were having trouble with attending school. Right now, we don't have someone employed there, but we do use the funds to help assist youth, like through our youth shelter and just other youth in the community that need things to assist them to continue to go to school.
We're not working directly with high schools or middle schools and.
Well, we have a relationship with them. We have a counselor. We recently have a new counselor up at the, and she gets referrals from the schools.
Thank you.
And I will say that Marcia's group is real good to assist in any way that they can. I had a situation, it's been a while back, but the family felt like their child was being treated differently because they were Native American. And Marcia sent somebody down just to kind of act as a liaison between the family and the school, and it was all resolved. And so even if there's not really a set program for it, her group has always been very good to do whatever they can to help out the citizens in whatever they need. So I just have to throw that in.
And Marcia has been very helpful when I have I've called her numerous occasions, not just about education, about different areas, and she's been very helpful, and I appreciate that.
When our funding went away for a program, it's probably been 2 years now. That doesn't mean that I want to say experts that had the experience in there, that they didn't go anyplace, they stayed within our program. So we can still rely on them to go out and do these referrals.
I just think it's really important. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for your good work.
Okay, did I miss anybody on Human Services? Okay. Thank you, Marcia. We appreciate you. Okay, that brings us down to Government Resources. Secretary, are you going to do that? All right, Karen.
I took his chair, so he's going to let me do this.
Well, there you go.
I think you have my budget. If you've got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Does anybody have anything for Karen?
Pardon?
I said, does anybody have anything for Karen? All right.
That's easy.
Well, you lost your chair again, so.
I lost my chair, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, we've already heard from the Marshal Service. So that brings us down to the Gaming Commission. Is there anybody here for them?
Lacey, will there be any changes there in gaming?
The main change here is there's an increase here related to career ladder implementation that he enacted during 17, and that came through a mod council May-ish. So that's the only change. Obviously, this is a budget that's offset with income from seed. Right? And obviously, if they don't spend up to this level, that's all it's going to cost seed.
The operational fees from the gaming commission are set at $300,000 per month. They said we'll have to be reevaluated in the coming fiscal year, come in line with the new fee rates determination process required by the new gaming ordinance. What is that?
Can you show me where you are?
Let me see.
Let me interject here. What's the pleasure of the group? Lacey can get Jamie over
Yeah, I can
here
call him.
probably real quickly. We could let Diane go ahead and present, and then
I can ask him this next
Do you-
month.
does anybody else want to chat with Jamie? Because he'll be here if we need him.
It's not gonna.
Simple budget to me.
Yeah.
And I can answer your question if you'll just show me where exactly, which page in the narrative.
Okay.
I mean, I know what
so-
you're talking about, but I want to see how.
So under the gaming commission tab, the first page, it says on the bottom, it's under revenues.
Oh, operation fees. Okay.
Yes. I just didn't.
Okay, so this is part of the. So this is part of the monthly operational fees that we receive from CNE, and
yeah.
I
The
believe
licenses
that
and stuff.
it comes in it's a little bit less than this a month, but we're not in any cash flow situation if we don't go up to the $300,000. And when the council passed that legislative act, and this is part of the legislative act's requirements is that the treasurer helps set the gaming commission's fee level from CNE every year. So,
So you're gonna set the fee level.
well, that's part of this process.
Okay.
And so sort of acting as that mediator between CNE and the gaming commission, because let's just say if I'm operating the gaming commission, I want more money. And if I'm C&B, I want to pay less money. But obviously the treasurer has an incentive to want to make sure that the casinos have a level of regulation that is going to make sure that the money's not going out the back door, right? So we want to make sure that there's an appropriate level of budget set. And also that there's not so much money that it's having a negative dividend impact to us from this perspective. So just making sure that there's a right size balance. And so in meeting
Who was controlling the ceiling of this before? The director of gaming commission, or?
I honestly think it's probably always kind of worked like this, but in the Gaming Act, I don't know which act it is. This is in the most recent version that was passed by tribal council that put the treasurer in the middle of this.
Oh, okay, so
So-
this legislation we passed.
It's
put the
legislation
treasurer
you
in the
passed.
middle.
Yeah, so I recently formally came into this.
Okay.
And that will be in compliance with IGRA, our National Indian Gaming Regulation, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's been like this for the last 3 years, last time you guys looked at that act.
And just for the new council, this has been an issue with our vendors that come onto our gaming facilities. They have to buy a license, and sometimes sometimes they have to buy one for themselves and 3 or 4 other people, and it starts digging into their pocket when they put a bid in to do a job on a casino property, and then our fees and everything that come along with that, it cuts into their profit that they're receiving. So I'm glad we're regulating that and hopefully paying favor to those vendors, because they're the ones that's needing a break on this whole thing. Anyways, thank you, Chair.
Are you stretching? All right, I think we're good. Okay, thank you, Lacey.
Good question.
Okay, information systems. Are you Jared?
I am. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jared Welch.
We have a mutual friend.
Yes, we do. I did contact him finally.
Yes, he let me know that you hadn't contacted him and then that you did.
Yeah, it was kind of trying to get hold of him.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so this is information systems. Anybody have any questions in that realm? I don't know enough about it to question, so.
Do we have a system set up for each department could come and give us a information, give us data on the services that we provide for our tribal members.
From what I understand,
I know there's proprietary information.
Yes.
Don't want to get into that confidentiality, and it's probably in the health department, but if I came to Diane Kelly and say, how many times has this person been served, or Marcia say, how many times this person received LIHEAP, and kept it confidential. Do we have that system in place?
from what I understand, there's been some work done over the years. And speaking of Marcia specifically, I have talked to her quite a bit lately about trying to get some reporting software available so they could pull information out easier from the databases that they actually have now. Collaborating between the departments, like I said, there has been some work done, but it is on my radar to take a look and see what we can do to get that information shared, collaboration.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any questions for Jared? Yes, Wanda?
Do we have the best system we could, I mean, one of the top systems, I mean, again, I'm like Denise, I couldn't ask you specifics, but do you feel like we have a great system, one of the top systems that you have to work with, you personally have to work with?
You know, coming from past life, digital transformation the world is going through, is picked up pace. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was just more or less just kind of struggling along. In the last 5 to 6 years, it's really picked up pace. Some of the systems that we have are exactly on track. They depreciate over the years, and we have to keep up with pace. But to specifically answer your question, yes, specifically as some of the cloud computing and things come along, there is some of that going on now. So I would not say it's behind times by any means.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Welch?
That's good.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate it. All right, that brings us down to Diane Kelly.
I wasn't in here, but for the record, I'm glad to follow Anna Knight today. And to answer your question, Mr. Speaker, we can track our people in our department. We've been doing it, but it's been antiquated, and we are going to the database. So we can track them within our department.
Anybody would, I know you would be doing that.
We have to.
Okay, Counselor Walkenstick's going to start us off.
The cut in the day work program, 1.7. What's going to be the effects of that?
We had a $6.5 million dislocated worker grant, which picked up several of those people that would normally come in for the day work program. So we didn't need as much, and then we upped the amount of money that we had for summer youth. We had over 700 and something students on the summer youth program this year. And we kind of, if you'll remember last year, we came back before you and asked to move some of that money back over to day work from the summer youth program. So internally, we've kind of moved some of the money around where we felt like that there was a need.
Okay. Yes, you always come back in and add more money into this program middle of the year, don't you, this day work program?
If I see on down the road that we've got an influx of people coming in, I go meet with the chief and Lacey and ask for additional funds. But so far, we've been pretty good about keeping it status quo on the budget, the way that we're presenting it. We have 3 grants that are out there in the pipeline right now. One's for 6.5, one's for 2.5, and then we have another one for $750,000. We don't know exactly whether we're going to get any of them funded, but getting those federal grants has helped us to be able to accommodate the needs and get the resources out there to the people.
Okay. Yes,
Councilor
ma'am.
Wilkins, which accounting unit are you referring to? Because
The employment and training, is that
this is PL 10247. No,
that not
day
day work?
training up above is 10-10-555, and there are no reductions on day training program. And
Okay.
this, I believe, is just a carryover reduction. Is that
Yes,
correct?
it is.
Diane, my apologies, I had you
Okay.
confused.
Well, I was kind of thinking, I don't think there
Here's,
is, but
here's my other question. That's good.
it was the public law 102477 that you were looking at.
Okay, yes. Yep, yes, exactly. Okay, so my next question is the vocational assistance.
Yes.
I know, so we put about 14 to 16 million dollars in our higher education, and 1 out of 4 of our higher ed kids end up leaving that program and they come to vocational. And the vocational assistance is LPN, RN, welding. What else do you guys do with the vocational? Plumbing?
We do a lot of.
Yeah, you guys name it, they do it. And, I would like to potentially add a little more money into this chair. Maybe $500,000. And to see how far that gets you guys. Because you guys run out of money about the end of July in this vocational assistance. And so you guys got 3 months of this dead time there, and you guys always find a way for your folks to get help. But I'd like to figure out if we could, Lacey, if we could find $225,000 to $500,000 to put in this vocational assistance to just see how far that gets them, if we can get them over that 3 month, that July through September window. Yes.
I appreciate what you're wanting to do, but I would like for you to allow us to wait and see if we get any of these grants funded. Because if we get these grants funded, we're gonna have to put people on those grants, and sometimes it's hard for us to get people that qualify for them. And there is vocational training in each one of these grants. And we're gonna have to put them on those federal dollars first, and that would be my first priority.
Would it be best to be safe than sorry, though?
Well, I can always come back and ask for carryover, and the chief always has an open door. If we're in dire straits, we can always go to him and ask to have additional monies put there. But I would ask your indulgence to allow us to see if we get these grants, because they're supposed to notify us between now and the end of September whether we're going to get one of the grants. And if we should get that 6.5, we had to ask for carryover extension this last year on it.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that I don't.
Well, I'm not going to try to force money down your throat, Diane.
Well, I understand. I would ask that you would allow us to wait and see if we get
Okay.
those grants first.
All right.
And let us see whether we can.
That's good.
We can address that at carryover, certainly.
Okay.
And
We'll keep an eye on it.
I think we all want our constituents educated and working, and
Yeah,
a lot of
and good
those
trade.
benefit our health system too.
I'd like to make a general comment regarding grants. There's a challenge that we're having with agencies when we have unspent grants. And that takes us out of when we can't spend the grant money that we have, we cannot go back to them and say, we need more money. Because they look to us and they can, because everything we do from a grant perspective is transparent. We have to do financial reports so they know exactly how much we've spent. And so I appreciate Diane for being protective of that $6.5 million grant, because if we can't spend that, then we are in big trouble. So just general sentiment is we got to spend the money.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Good. I'll take that recommendation.
Appreciate it though.
Hey, you're welcome. Anytime. Thank you.
She'll hit you up for something else, I can tell.
I promise.
Okay,
Rachel.
anything else for Diane?
May I just make a comment?
Absolutely.
Diane, without a doubt, just blew it out on our orientation for the new counselors. I've got to tell you what, I feel like you turned every stone over in such a short amount of time. And I said, as a matter of fact, we learned it was so informative that I'd like to take it again in 2 years.
Well, I
And
tell
I
you what,
appreciate
all of the executive directors played a role in that. Connie, Janice, even Councilman Keith, and I appreciate everybody's support and help. And I appreciate all you council members that came out and supported the 4 new council members. I know Councilman Austin and Councilman Lay were here, and I think some of the rest of you all sat in for parts of it. And we appreciate you all taking the time to go out. I know everybody appreciated seeing y'all.
Thank you.
Anything else for Diane? Okay. Jamie Hummingbird is in the house. And I do encourage the directors, their job is taking care of our people back at the office. And so if they're sitting here for 3 days, they're not getting their stuff done. And Jamie just didn't time it quite right to be here when his number came up. But he's here now. If anybody has anything for him, or if you just want to brag about your department, go ahead, Jamie.
I don't know if you have that much time for me to brag about my department.
Well, probably not. Hit the high spots.
The high spots. For this year, we are looking to make just basically one more significant change that the council actually acted on a few months back, and that was to allow for career ladders to be implemented for our staff. So that represents the lion's share of our request this year. We were also able to make some reductions in other line items to kind of help offset some of the increases. But for this year, we are pretty much maintaining a flat budget over year, with the exception of instituting those career ladders.
Okay. Anything else? He came all the way down here. Okay.
I like no questions, so thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon.
Jamie, appreciate it.
I want that noted for the record, if I could, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, that brings us to the Housing Authority, and I see Gary back there. He is.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Hello, Gary.
How are you all today? Moving along rather quickly. So ours is basically pretty much pretty standard, and most of ours, actually, almost all except for I think 2 are federally funded, grant-funded line items. They're all NAHOSTA-funded programs, which is what most of our housing programs are through, at least on this side. We use a pass-through budget, so NAHOSTA money flows through the tribe, and then we do the work, and it flows back over to us for the billing part. And then there are 2. There's a HIP program, which is a self-governance. I think it's self-governance funded program, BIA funded program, and then there's a couple of emergency programs that we have tribally funded, or tribal funds to use to do those. And basically the whole purpose of those programs is to try to buy some time, save some time from if an emergency came up, someone didn't have water, someone, their roof leaking or something like that. If they qualify under the rehab program, we have money to do that emergency work without having to wait and wade through all the red tape, do the environmentals, basically to try to save some time. But that is also in those events that they do qualify under or meet the same qualifications as they would under the typical NAHOSTA program.
Is there a dollar amount on that up to?
For each individual one, we try to keep it around, limit to around 2,000.
Okay.
But it can vary, because it could be something as simple as fixing a water leak, which may be a couple $100, to something a little bit more a little bit more involved, like go out on a septic system repair and having to dig up most of the septic system to, either pump out and replace part of the lines or something. Roof leaking and go out and, the roof is in bad shape, but we will try to, on that program too, what we try to do, if it needs to be replaced, we'll try to repair it until we can access the federal funds and do the environmental and the other stuff that we've got to do. If it's an older home, sometimes we got to do like lead-based paint and asbestos testing, but we'll try to do all that so we can try to spend our federal funds.
So it's
to do most
truly
of
an
that work.
emergency.
Yeah,
This
it
family
is.
is not going to be able to stay here for 24 hours unless this is fixed. It's
Yeah, if usually what we do is the family either calls and we will tell them what they need to bring in. We'll go out and help them fill it out. Or they come into the office and we'll take their application and also give them a list of what we need back, income, proof of ownership. I mean, the few things. If we can get all that, we can turn it around pretty quick. Usually what happens in most cases is there's usually a holdup in getting some of that information back. But we certainly try.
Counselor Crittenden?
Hey, Garrett, on that emergency money that used to be under Canaan, this is not what you're talking about right there, is it?
No, I think that's a separate one.
So, now that's gonna work kinda like it did under Canaan, where I
That's-
send him something and you can't get to it, or they don't qualify?
That's my understanding. I believe so. I think
Kinda gonna work
my
the
understanding
same?
is it's going to work exactly the same, except it's going to be over on our side, and we will keep
Keep in
a
touch.
summary. Yeah, we'll keep a summary of how much you have in each council member's pot. So
look
you
at
can
it the
say,
same way, like, hey,
Yeah.
they don't have their name on the deed.
Yeah.
Can't get to it in a certain amount of time, then we deal with it there. Kinda works the same.
Yeah. One of the other things, the two that comes up is like, they don't have insurance, or maybe they're having a tough time getting insurance, or whatever the case is, because in order to access federal funds, in addition to those environmental requirements we have, the requirement is they also have to carry, it has to be insured.
I'm anxious to see how that, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have anything for Gary? All right. Appreciate
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, I saw Sharon back there. It's time for a text commission.
You can count on Sharon being here.
Good afternoon. I think you all have my budget there, but it's pretty much a flat budget. There is a small decrease in the revenue and taxation and a small increase in the tag office. Basically, it winds up with just a small decrease overall, which has to do with the way the rebates and the compact are paid back to us and paid back out to the retailers. Other than that, there are no significant changes.
Anybody have any questions?
Sharon, would you explain real quick how we increased the revenue by giving our tags to our bordering counties out there that are adjacent to our counties?
Yes, the expanded jurisdictional area, when
How we
we picked
increased
up the
our
rest of those
Yes.
counties. When we picked up those counties, they get the in-jurisdiction rate, and it has been tremendous. I was really surprised at how well that has turned out, but it has been a tremendous increase. I don't have the exact numbers with me on the expanded jurisdiction, but I can send out that report every month to you all if you would like that. That way you'll have it. It tells the number of tags that's issued and also the revenue that goes along with that.
I think we gave close to $5 million back to
We
the
did.
public schools this year.
$5 million this year back to
Yeah.
schools.
Amazing.
It's increased every year.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. Good
and
job.
Thank you. It's
Thank you,
that's very significant to our schools, and they all greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, they do.
Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Brings us down to the election commission.
That's been good for us. She does.
And I see Connie here. Did Martha bail on you?
Martha bailed on me. Just give me.
Send you up here alone.
Drove me to the wolves.
Yeah.
Connie can handle it.
Well, we don't have a flat budget, we have a decrease of $273,871, with it being a non-election year. So, other than that, we're basically back to where we were 2 years ago.
So you have a year to prepare for the next one? You have a year to prepare for the next one?
We have a year to prepare for the next one, so yes.
All right, any questions for the election commission? If not, we'll
Keep
let
up
her
the
get
good
back
work,
to work
Connie.
too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. That was quick.
Yeah, that was easy. Okay, this brings us to Cherokee Publications, and Brandon had let us know he would not be here. Is anybody here from the Phoenix?
He had an issue, secretary's going down.
Well, Brandon had let us know ahead of time.
Yeah.
He couldn't be here.
I was going to tell him, Mr. Scott had a funeral today, and I think Mr. Chavez was going to go over if any questions were asked.
I can talk.
You're not Mr. Chavez.
You essentially have reductions that are related to the expiration of the Citizens Access to Transparency program that we'd had for the last 3 years. So that's the only significant change. You see that reflected in both gen fund and generalized.
I see the situation we discussed last week, it's worked in these figures, right?
I'm sorry?
The situation that we discussed last week, it's worked in these figures, correct?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Good.
Well, let me just make sure that I'm clear. Nothing has changed in these figures since we talked, but I think we're working out something in these today.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I saw Nikki come in to talk about Indian child welfare. Good afternoon.
Rachel Ford, she come on and sit with me. I call her my wingman. Together we fly the plane. So if I have any questions, I usually just ask her, and she keeps us budgeted correctly.
Looks like your budget is pretty much flat. So if anybody has any questions for Nikki, you can go ahead, or if you just have anything that you want to tell us, you do that too. Nothing.
Good budget.
You're catching us, we're tired,
Good job.
I guess.
Nikki, you and your staff did a really a thorough job in explaining your department that, I had many questions. But during orientation, some of the council members that did not hear that really needs to hear what your department is all about because it involves our children.
Right.
So we appreciate what you did, orientation, gave me a better overview of what you guys are doing and very much appreciate it.
Be glad to provide that anytime.
Thank you.
Okay, and I see Sarah Hill here, Secretary of Natural Resources.
Sarah can handle it by herself, see?
Good afternoon. We have all our budgets. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them if I can.
Sure will.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hey, sir, the money that Councilman Lay keeps talking about on the TCNS money, as far as revenue goes, is that in your budget?
It is not in my budget. The TCNS, the current, the TIPO office is currently run off of grant money, but that grant won't be received until later. So there's a general fund budget that replaces that. And Lacey probably has more artistic accountant words to use that will be better to understand than my lawyer words.
The operational budget is in gen fund, and
It's in the gen fund?
yeah, 101-1064.
Say that again, Lacey.
101-1064 Tribal Historic Preservation Office, and so that is the operational piece. And if she is funded for the grant, which we anticipate that's probably so, that budget will shift from a 101 budget, it'll shift to a grant budget.
Because it's not a grant, though.
It is.
It's
It
a
was.
contracted services from, like AT&T. They're wanting to put in a cell phone tower, and they hire a contracted crew to do a survey, archaeological survey, and then part of that, they got to do a cultural survey, which comes down to the tribe, which is it's a section 106, and we sign off on a section 106, and so it's not a grant, it's services rendered.
But it was started with a grant. We had to go out and apply for a grant in order to be able to get this office with some operational dollars, some technical expertise, and help me here.
No, that's
so to
correct.
be able to get this project started, so that we could then we have another revenue. So we have IHS and bill and collect. So some grants can produce.
How much is the review cost?
It depends on the review. They normally cost $500 per review. Sometimes if there's a cluster of them all at one time submitted, there will be a lower rate for a cluster of them that are submitted, but ordinarily it's $500 per review.
And then what's the review process? What's the depth of it?
It goes to the TIPO officer, and they pull up the maps, and we have our own database that has information about culturally.
What kind of maps do we use?
A GIS database.
GIS database?
Right.
Okay.
That's tied to a cultural database that has information about different cultural locations, and they pull the site of the new cell tower against those locations. And if there are any concerns, then we let them know, hey, there's some concerns with the site. Or if there are no concerns, we let them know there's no concerns with that site. But if they find anything that later, while they're doing construction, they have to let us know so that we can intervene then.
Now, Lacey, how much money is in this operational budget?
So in the operational budget, there is $132,000, but to date, this office has revenues of $2.3 million. And so we'll be bringing that in through Exhibit A to modify this budget. So it will be brought in at the beginning of the fiscal year.
So this TIPO office brings in approximately $1 million a year? Is that right, Sarah?
It's been I think, increasing revenue, so I don't know if it would be per year, but that's the total that it's brought in since its inception.
About 50,000 a week, probably?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know if that's the total it's brought in since its inception, because we've never spent any of that money.
Okay, because I know the UKB, their council appropriated this money for scholarships and elder care, and so is there any restrictions on this money, Lacey?
So the money from...
This 2.3 million?
So we receive those funds, and they are to be used for historic preservation efforts.
Does it have to be for historical preservation efforts?
It is the practice of the Cherokee Nation to utilize the money in the manner of the intent in which it was received or generated.
Okay.
And so just like IHS dollars, so we can bill and collect for that doctor to provide a service, we have to then take the money that we collect from him providing that service to go back into more health care. I can't take that dollar that he makes and go pay for a scholarship over here.
I know that here a while back, the IHS, IDC money that we had a lawsuit over, I know that money didn't go back to IHS.
Because that was an unrestricted settlement to the tribe.
Okay, and this is unrestricted money as well?
It is not. And do you want to speak to the challenges that are being brought about the TIPO revenues?
So this money is not revenue that I think that the Cherokee Nation can count on being a long-term revenue source, because there's been a challenge by a lot of these different companies, because the Cherokee Nation charges $500 per review. There are other tribes that were setting that review fee at $2,000, $3,000 per review. And there were a lot of complaints from the different companies that pay these fees, saying that the tribes were gouging them and not treating them fairly. So they went to the FCC and requested a review. And there's been for over a year now, there's been a constant sort of tug of war between the tribes and the different entities that pay these fees, and the FCC trying to find some place in the middle where it makes sense to reimburse costs, to pay back for the costs that the tribes are putting into it, and not turning it into a money-making opportunity for tribes where they're taking money away from the businesses. So there's been a focus on making sure that that money is really consistent and reasonable. I don't know where that's going to end up. I don't know under this administration how the FCC will react, or where it will be, if it'll be set at $500, or if it'll be set at something less than that, or if that fee will even continue to exist. I don't know at this point that we can say how that's going to end up. So
are we given this department justice with having one employee in there and doing $1 million of reviews? I mean, if we're doing $500 per review, what's the math on that? How many reviews is that per year this one person's doing?
Well, we've got 2 people working on it.
We've got
our TIPO who works on it, and we've got another employee that we've borrowed part-time to help us with that. And sometimes there have also been to help just copying maps and data management. We've even had day workers come in sometimes and assist. I've been hesitant to hire anybody else to do that when I don't know what the long-term outcome is going to be.
I asked the Creek Nation about their department. They have 20 employees. Choctaws have 15 employees.
Right.
And I'm not sure what their workload is, but I would assume ours is larger, being a larger service area. Of course, is it 15 different states that we have not jurisdiction, but we might have some archaeological sites in 15 different states that we might be able to get some business off of. So I just don't know if two's adequate.
I think the difference is, one thing, it's important not to confuse TCNS with Section 106. TCNS is a relatively small program, and the review process is relatively small. Section 106 doesn't just cover cell phone towers, which is what TCNS is about. So dealing with Section 106, you have different responsibilities and different things that you do. Also, a lot of the other tribes have larger and more mature programs. They may have a really large NAGPRA program. They may be involved in different things. And at this point, I have been hesitant to really enlarge the size of that department when I don't have a dependable revenue source to draw off of. If this is settled ultimately, then there may be an opportunity to increase the scope of the work that we do. But for right now, I have felt like it was much safer to continue to do the work that we're doing, which is, and I've talked to the employees and they stay busy, but they are meeting the requirements that they have under the law, and I've chosen to stick with that for now until we know how this is going to turn out, before we get really ahead of ourselves and spend a lot of money, and then that revenue source is gone, and we have to deal with an emergent situation.
Well, then under the National Historical Preservation Act, is there an advisory board that has to be assimilated for this act?
I mean, there's a federal advisory board, but
But not a tribal.
there's no requirement for a tribal board.
I was told by the Creek Nation that the tribe has to assimilate an advisory board for this Historical Preservation Act, that we received this TCNS money.
I don't believe that that's the case, and maybe it's some other function of their work that they do that we maybe haven't expanded out into yet, but I don't think that that's the case. I'd have to talk to them more in detail.
I just want to be sure that we're not rubber stamping these reviews, and we're doing our due diligence on getting these done. So, I don't know, if two people's doing $1 million worth of work at $500 a pop, I don't know what the math is on that, but they're staying hooked.
They are staying hooked, and that's definitely true. And I assure you, though, that every single review that comes through is getting personally looked at and reviewed. And they are staying quite busy, but I assure you that it's getting done properly.
Okay. And, you know, a lot of reason I was talking about this is I just want to educate this council that these monies are there. She's right. Not sure how much longer they're going to be there with the other tribes gouging these organizations with the increase of fees. But the $2 million, from my understanding, is non-restricted money, and we as a council, we have projects, we should have access to those monies. But I'm with Treasurer here. If that money is generated from that department, let's put it back into that department. And what our tribe is doing is our Heritage Center. Our Heritage Center is really underfunded, which we're not over it. They have their own board, but this department would really go well under that department with the Heritage Center to be a source of revenue and to make scholarships available for students that are wanting to go into archaeology, and maybe have some preservation activities going on at the Heritage Center. So anyways, those are just some ideas thrown around, but I think it would complement the Heritage Center better.
Chief Baker?
I
You wanna
agree,
say something?
and that's why we'll bring a proposal very soon for, to use the bulk of these dollars to build a hurricane or a tornado-proof shelter to put the archives of the Cherokee people on the Heritage Center grounds so that we can protect our valuable assets from now on. So the hurricane won't hit, they'll be in heat and air and humidity controlled into the basement, so that these priceless artifacts will be protected for the Cherokee people. I don't know how to use monies that are designed for cultural preservation any better than to get our valuable assets where they'll be available and in good shape for the next 7 generations.
Hey Chief,
Very good.
Hey Chief, where's this going to be put at?
At the Heritage Center.
Heritage Center. I was wanting to bring something else to y'all's attention. So the Native American Graves Protection Act, it's been my understanding that we have our ancestors that their remains are sitting on a shelf in different areas And I think it'd be a good thing to bring those remains back home and bury them properly into their homelands. Which Talco isn't originally their homelands, but bring them back to the tribe.
We are involved in several NAGPRA cases, usually with the Eastern Band, and the idea has been to put them back where they were removed from. So if they were removed from the original homelands, I felt like it was appropriate that they be reinterred there where they came from. I mean, those are not questions I think that are easily answerable, what's appropriate, but we've been working in collaboration with the Eastern Band, and when there are opportunities to reinter people, the areas from where they came from, that has been our preferred way to do it, and the Eastern Band has a location set aside to do that.
Okay. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Sarah, you never cease to amaze me with the depth of your knowledge of whatever we throw at you. I'm very impressed. I'm glad you're on our team.
Thank you. I give it my best shot.
Sarah, commend you for using 2 staff people for accomplished and bringing in that amount of revenue. You know, from our counselor here saying, look how many staff members these other tribes were using, and yet look what kind of revenue we're bringing in. So just utilizing 2, that's not bad.
They are tremendously, all the credit goes to the employees who work tirelessly to make sure that job gets done and gets done right every day.
Thanks.
Councilor Lake.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The clean line, I think, is on its way, and this may not be the right forum to speak about it to the council. If you want to, I'd like to hear from you.
I think we'll have opportunity to talk about that at the Rules Committee on the 31st.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that brings us to the end of our narrative. And our finance department is all ears.
Is Chief still here?
Yep.
Would you please go over again on the archives? That's really good news. And how much money are we looking at in building? Or you haven't got an estimate yet?
No, I mean, we've got rough estimates that Gibson spent $110 to $135 a square foot for their domes, which, as far as commercial construction, is not so bad. I've got staff, researching it, checking out the different contractors, checking with, I think Catoosa has put some in, or Logan Stroke put some in. We'll look around and see, who the best contractor is. We'll bid them out later and see what we're going to do, but it won't use this entire fund, but we'll be extremely frugal, but at the same time, we don't want to underbuild, or we want a quality product. I mean, we all took an oath to protect this stuff.
Sure.
So,
Does this facility, does it have to be built on tribal land, or can it be built on Heritage Center?
Well, it's 6
Or does it matter?
Yeah. I mean, my preference is built on tribal land and lease it to them for 99 years. Just like the village is on tribal land,
okay,
that they've leased for 99 years. Mainly because it's right there on the road, and it would be a really nice vision coming into the Heritage Center, and it won't detract from anything because it'll have a terracotta roof just like the council house does in the village. It'll be just a rounded and have 8-foot sidewalls, and I don't know how many of you have been up to Jay where the brickwork looks like a Cherokee basket pattern. But if we'll go around the outside of this with a Cherokee basket pattern, it'll just flow right into to the village and the Heritage Center and those that entire piece of property out there. And it will reserve their land for expansions that they want to do on their own. And but I visited with them, and they're extremely pleased that you all might be able to allow them to do this, and it's truly a godsend, and they think it will kickstart them into revitalizing the fundraising efforts and the Heritage Center as a whole. And instead of having to start out raising the $500,000 to match the $500,000 that we're going to give, and just building the building and get it right and get everything in where it's protected.
It is my understanding that all the, I'm talking to you, Chief, that all of the domes at Locust Grove were built on a grant, some type of,
It wouldn't surprise me because, you know, I think, you know, for schools and things where you can put your kids in an F5-proof classroom and it doesn't cost really any more than conventional construction, I wouldn't doubt that there weren't grants out there to get that in place, hoping that schools all over the country might look at the same thing. But I don't know that.
okay. Okay, so we've had healthy discussion. We've got a motion and a second. Okay.
Okay. We want to do an exhibit A, is that what you're
Exhibit A
saying?
to summarize.
Is that ready, or do we need to take a break?
We're calculating the cash reserve amount, if we could have 5-10 minutes
10 minutes.
to
10 minutes?
make sure everything's all balanced out.
10, we're ready to go.
10 minutes to, what'd you say? Oh, yeah.
Family time, Tony.
Oh, Sam. Right, we're ready for Have they been listening? Hello?
Same thing. Yeah, just the Red Cross and, you know, they do the emergency stuff and get quick way first.
Back. He's gonna call in.
Yeah.
Yeah, fix him up. I will.
Jody is going to hand everybody the Exhibit A. And then Lacey's going to give us a once-over on it, just to make sure all minds are clear before we vote. I've got one.
Thanks, sir. There's Jody.
Okay, you've got the Exhibit A in front of you, some balancing transactions, and our treasurer's going to walk us through this real quick so we'll understand what we're voting on.
Okay. So what you have in front of you is Exhibit A. So essentially what this acts as is the changes that are being made during the comprehensive budget. So this will be the final changes that will be made in order to pass this comprehensive budget. Contributions and donations, this is a $10,000 increase, and this will be for Councilors Shaw and Councilor Hatfield. This is $5,000 pots of money available to each of them for at-large Phoenix subscriptions. Cherokee Promise Gen Fund Sunset, this is $136,000. This is related to the spring semester of the solution that we passed at the last tribal council related to Promise Scholars. General fund operations, 1.158 million. I'll speak to number 3 and number 8 kind of at the same time. As I mentioned during some of our pre-meetings, there was going to be a revision in estimates for the tax commission, and that we would have to revise those in Exhibit A. And so that's what's happening in those 2 transactions. Unappropriated reserves, this is 1.5 million. This is bringing in the amount needed to balance the budget. Cash reserve fund, this is the legislatively required cash reserve of operational dollars, and based upon the changes we're making today, it needs to increase $10,607. Housing accessibility housing program, housing authority housing program, this is the housing accessibility program, and this is the $100,000 amount administrative portion of those funds, and so this is in addition to the council pots of money. Whenever I put this budget forward, I forgot to include that portion, so that's on me. Tribal Council Gen Fund, here's the $170,000 that's being added to your Community Assistance Fund by $10,000 per tribal councilor. Already spoken about number 8. And number 9 here is bringing in the Tribal Historic Preservation Office revenues to round out this budget. Any questions? Okay.
If not, Shelley, I think we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I
sir.
have a question, if we're going right into vote. Not a question, but a comment. I'd sure like to see what the pay increases in the RFTs or RUTs are going to be on the providers before I vote on this or the next one. I don't know where it's coming up. We need to see it before we get to the finalization of all this. And with that, I'll vote for this. Thank you.
Shelley, Madam Chair, Councilmember Walkenstick said he's going to call in, and that's okay with everybody. He had to go to a funeral.
Would it be
Secretary,
Attorney General or Secretary? I had suggested he FaceTime. I believe our policies say they have to be seen and heard.
he can do FaceTime, and I'll show it to you when he calls in.
The policy is that when we did the remote access was that it would be by voice and video. So you would have to buy 2/3 voting to suspend that rule if you would want just a phone call to suffice.
Would a FaceTime
We can do
suffice?
FaceTime, right?
You can do a FaceTime, as long as there are video interaction, face-to-face, or, would suffice.
Okay.
Question? Yes. Just to be fair here, I want to make sure I understand. This budget, if we pass this is locking in without knowing what's going to happen with our physician salaries that they're going to present to us in the future. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
How will those adjustments in any pay come out? I mean, what?
It'll be a budget modification. It will.
It would be a budget modification.
Through carryover?
So, as Dr. Grimm mentioned, they received some additional revenue from the federal government during the omnibus bill that was passed back in, I believe that was April. So they have some additional dollars that they can bring on to fund these salary increases. So again, I don't know how much or what it's going to be, but I know that they are working hard, and I know that they are trying to make this into this budget, but if not, it will be a mod shortly thereafter. We will do a mod as early as, let's see, sorry, counting out my dates here. October mod will be the first, October ENF.
Well, we could do September ENF to pass in October, so.
That's true. That's true. Thank you.
Is it possible that we could table this vote until our next meeting and hear what the presentation is on those pay raises?
I would prefer to go ahead and vote. I have talked with Connie about that at length, and I think she's aware we've got a problem. And and I would prefer to go ahead and vote on this, knowing that they're aware they have a problem. They're going to have to do something for their doctors.
I would hate to see the rest of the programs of the nation suffer at the
Hold on for a
program's
second.
inability to get a portion that council wanted in this budget.
Jody, you might explain a budget mod for some of the new council members, how often we do budget modifications?
Yes, we do one every month, so,
At least one.
yeah, we have it. Generally, we don't do one in September, so we end up having 11 modifications each year, so, but
I think
there's a change every month.
your point is taken, and it's a priority, I think, to all of us. We want to know, and we want that information ahead of time. I just don't want to hold up the services of the tribe for that one issue, which is an important issue, don't get me wrong. But we can address that in a budget mod and go a whole day if we need to.
So if we do approve it today, we still have to September before it actually gets approved, correct?
Correct.
So there's a little bit of wiggle room, I guess?
You'll have this will go to the September full council meeting.
September, is that when it is? Okay.
Let's do a
Councilor
call.
Crittenden?
Yes, just to be clear, so you're gonna try to get us that information before our nightly council meeting before this actually goes to vote?
I'm just going to say that I am not in a position to promise anything, okay? So, I am waiting on a program to finalize the information that they need in order to get a yes or no from administration to bring that forward to tribal council to even ask for the money. So, I don't know that I can give any assurances on anything today.
Like I stated
But-
earlier, I think there's been a lot of conversation about it.
Yeah.
And we've been left in the dark, so before the council meeting, I don't think it's a far stretch to kind of let us in on the maybes and the approximately this much or something, but that's what I'd like to see.
As soon as we do.
Okay. So, asking who wants to go first. Stick. Yes. Do you want to vote first?
We gotta see.
Okay, can everybody hear him? Stick. Wait a minute, I'm gonna turn your volume up one more time.
I can hear it.
Is it yes or no?
We lost him. No. Well, let's
He
go
did say
ahead.
yes.
Let's go ahead, yes. He did. Let's go ahead with the roll call, maybe
Better not be in
call
that
back,
bad
but he did.
Brian Warner.
Yes.
There he is. Okay.
Just get his vote and hang up on him.
Okay, one more time. What's your vote?
David Walkenstick?
Okay, thank you. You can have it back.
See you later, buddy.
Bill England.
Yes.
Austin.
Yes.
Harley Buzzard.
Yes.
Joe Bird.
Yes.
Sean Crittenden.
Yes.
Mike Dobbins.
Yes.
Frankie Hargis.
Yes.
Wanda Hatfield.
Yes.
Rex Jordan.
Yes.
Dick Way.
Yes.
Mike Shambaugh.
Yes.
Mary Bakershaw.
Yes.
E.O. Smith.
Yes.
Janice Taylor.
Yes.
Victoria Vasquez.
Yes.
We have a unanimous 17-2.
Okay, does anybody have any announcements or any closing thoughts?
I'll make an announcement. Council members, Cherokee holidays, there's passes that you will need for parking and so forth. Make sure you get with Gail and she'll take care of you because parking, sometimes you can get shuttled to the destination or you may want to drive, but Gail will have all that information for you. Any questions? She's got some.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, be back here Thursday. What time do we start Thursday?
Move to adjourn.
1, I think. 1? 1 o'clock. Okay, we have. Do we have culture? This Thursday?
Not till September. No, we don't have it Thursday.
Thursday. Okay, we're adjourned.
What time Thursday?